What if I were to tell you you could take 1 tablespoon of something and help yourself lose more belly fat? Would you be interested?
Would I? So this is Dr. Eric Berg. He has over 12 million subscribers on YouTube and mainly talks about metabolic health and weight loss. But there's just one tiny, massive problem. He's not even a medical doctor. He's a chiropractor. Getting nutritional advice from a chiropractor is like getting financial advice from a plumber. And no offense to any plumbers in the audience. So right out the gate, he's spewing pseudoscience with zero backing from human data or literature. But let's hear more about what he has to say, shall we?
If so, there's a really great natural solution. And this goes beyond the typical eat less, exercise more, etc. This talk is mainly for the person that has a slow metabolism and they need an unfair advantage. But I need to really clarify something because people that say they have a slow metabolism actually don't have a slow metabolism.
So there is some truth to this. Metabolism does not break. I promise you, you are not broken. It either upregulates or it downregulates based on your lifestyle factors.
Okay, if we take a Hummer on this side versus a hybrid Camry, what would be the main difference? Well, one is a gas guzzler and one is more efficient with its fuel, right? The Hummer gets about 16 miles per gallon and the hybrid Camry gets around 51 miles per gallon. Huge difference. So with people that have a difficult time losing weight, their real problem is deep in the motor.
If you're not losing weight, it comes down to energy balance. You are not burning more calories than what you're taking in. And the amount of calories you burn is dictated by your metabolism. So we need to create a metabolism that is on motherfucking fire. One that is working for you, not against you. And again, this is gonna be accomplished via your lifestyle. Adding more muscle to your frame, moving your body more mindfully, better quality food, better sleep, not with a pill or a powder.
They can go a longer period of time with less fuel compared to someone with a so-called high metabolism. So the question is, how can we switch your motor over to a system that is more of a gas guzzler and you're in a situation where you're wasting more fuel?
How? Just like I mentioned, creating a metabolism that is on freaking fire.
That would be a good goal, wouldn't it? This is probably going to be a new term for you, but it's called mitochondrial uncoupling.
Oh dear God, that's where he's going with this. So mitochondria uncoupling is a fancy way of saying that your body's burning energy as heat instead of using it to power your cells. So when your body's burning energy for heat, instead of storing it or using it towards other processes, it can help to burn more calories. But here's the thing, and I'm gonna shoot it straight. Focusing on mitochondria uncoupling for fat loss is trying to nail a hammer into the wall with the tip of your stiletto. It's gonna be really fucking ineffective. If you wanna drive the nail into the wall, you're going to use the hammer. You're going to use the tool that is the most effective.
Well, the mitochondria is the energy factory that turns food into ATP, which is kind of like a storage form of energy. And I think the best way to describe uncoupling related to the mitochondria, to make it really simple, is that the mitochondria is going to make less ATP and more heat. So what's happening, instead of making this storage form of energy, it's basically just creating a lot of heat. And that heat can be wasted. So today's talk is about discovering what you can use as a mitochondrial uncoupler.
Here he goes again, trying to confuse the fuck out of you with processes in the body that really don't move our needle forward when it comes to fat loss. If fat loss is your primary goal, we want to move the big rocks, not the tiny pebbles.
Now, there's a certain weight loss drug, which I don't even think it's still in the market, in the US at least. It's called 2,4-dinitrophenol. But we're just going to call it DNP, okay? This is a drug. And if I'm not mistaken, it was taken off the market because, yes, it helped people lose weight very fast, but it created some pretty serious side effects.
One of those side effects being death. The fact that he's even talking about this is asinine to me.
Now, aspirin, by the way, is another mitochondrial uncoupler, which I'm not going to recommend that, even though it may help you lose a little weight, because it's a drug and it causes side effects like, a bleeding ulcer, but other than that, it's perfectly fine. Now, there's another drug called niclosamide, which is a dewormer, and it's also been tested to help lose weight in mice studies. I don't think they repurposed it for a weight loss medication, but it too does what's called mitochondrial uncoupling.
I'm not going to recommend any of these things, but let me pry on people's emotions, sound really smart with all my medical terminology, and try to convince people that they need to unlock the power of their mitochondria uncoupling for fat loss. So many people are so freaking vulnerable, and I know that the dude knows this. He's literally talking about a dewormer right now.
Now the question is there a natural mitochondrial uncoupler? And yes, there is. The first thing that can help increase it is something called resveratrol. Now, what's interesting about resveratrol is in several things. It's in grapes, cranberries, it's in blueberries, it's also in dark chocolate, it's in pistachios, and it's especially in something called Japanese knotweed. They make that into a tea. And they do have resveratrol in a powder.
So this is really great to help your cells stay healthy and strong. It's like giving your cells a little shield. But you don't need a powder or a supplement for this. Just eat more whole foods that it's found in. Your body prefers the natural sources over the processed version of it anyways.
So if you were going to take a tablespoon a day, that could help you. But what's interesting about resveratrol and all the berries that I just mentioned is that they're all polyphenols. And even in the chocolate, it's loaded with polyphenols, okay? Now, remember when I talk about that drug 2,4-dinitrophenol? Apparently, there's an interesting connection between phenols, right? Polyphenols and just regular phenols. The chemistry of phenols apparently can create a mitochondrial uncoupling effect. Now, there's some other things that can create this uncoupling as well. Ketones. This is probably one of the reasons why people lose more weight when they do the ketogenic diet.
Before I even dive into this, how about we talk about the amount of people who gain the weight back plus some after doing keto? But no, he doesn't want to talk about that. I knew he was going to bring ketones into this. There is nothing magical about keto. It's a way to put you in a calorie deficit. Will you lose weight doing keto if you're in a calorie deficit? Yes. However, you can lose weight just being in a calorie deficit and eating carbs. I don't want to know a life without bread or potatoes. You shouldn't either.
And of course, ketones actually help the mitochondria just work better in general. Then we have cold therapy. Think about what happens when you do cold immersion or cold shower.
Not saying cold plunging doesn't have amazing benefits, but it does nothing for fat loss.
The core temperature needs to always be constant, and your body is going to fight like heck to keep that core temperature at 98.6. So think about how much heat you'd have to generate to do that. And when you're doing cold immersion, you're not exercising, you're not eating differently, you're just experiencing a lot of uncomfortableness, and you're generating a tremendous amount of heat, and you're burning a lot of fat. Then we have another one called exercise. That's right, exercise helps the mitochondria waste energy. Fasting is another way of creating uncoupling. Green tea has a mild effect of mitochondrial uncoupling. And even doing a sauna or a jacuzzi creates a similar effect to mitochondrial uncoupling.
My eye roll game could not be more strong right now. Everything that he's talking about is a way to create a calorie deficit. That's it. Your nutrition and your training is what moves the big rocks when it comes to fat loss, not your mitochondria.
Now, on the flip side, what are some things that will block this mitochondrial uncoupling? That would be important to know. Number one, excess calories. Think about it. When you eat too much, and what I mean too much is I'm talking about you're eating excess of what your mitochondria can burn, you inhibit this mitochondrial uncoupling and you worsen the mitochondria.
Or how about the fact that you put yourself in a calorie surplus, and that's the reason you're gaining fat, not your mitochondria.
This could be eating way too many carbs, too much sugar like the average person, but it can also mean eating too much fat.
I want to take a second to point out that there is no single macro that causes fat gain. Being in a calorie surplus causes fat gain. Your protein, your carbs, and your fats add up to the amount of calories that you eat every single day. Eating too many calories and being in a caloric surplus is what causes you to gain body fat. It's not sugar, it's not carbs. Now, can foods high in sugar and high in carbs, high in fats be very calorically dense? Sure, which means that we need to manage the amount of foods that we're eating from those sources. But that does not mean that you have to cut them out. You just need to be mindful of the amounts. This all comes down to eating the foods that you need and combining it with the foods that you love and understanding how to do so.
This is something I rarely talk about, but I think it's important not to overeat because you're forcing your body to overload that mitochondria and your body can't burn it off. Now, If you exercise a lot, then you need to eat more. But how many people are eating just too much for their activity level and their age? This also includes the snacking. This is why intermittent fasting is a really great strategy as well.
I do agree with him that so many people underestimate how many calories they're really eating and overestimate how much they're really moving. But I do want to add my thoughts in regarding intermittent fasting. There is no magic at all whatsoever to fasting outside of the calorie deficit that it puts you in. Fasting Felicia doesn't come and sprinkle her fairy fasting dust on you, and you only eat within these magical windows and you biohack your way into being a fat burning machine. It does not work that way. Now, it can be a tool in the toolbox, and I'm not completely against it when done correctly, but the problem is most people don't implement it correctly. They're not eating enough protein, they're not training in a way that supports their goals, and typically it ends up with you eating one meal a day. Why? Because the scale stops moving, and every single time the scale stops moving, you reduce your eating window even more. But what happens after the scale stops moving and you're only eating one meal a day? Are you just gonna eat every other day at that point? Your overall calories and protein consumption is what's going to drive your success, not keto, not fasting, not your mitochondria.
Aging, as you get older, we have less mitochondrial uncoupling. The more sedentary you are, the less effect you're going to create with this uncoupling. The more you're exposed to heavy metals, that can also block the mitochondria. And certain medications, especially statins, beta blockers, metformin, and antibiotics.
Well, my head hurts after that. But the truth is, there's a bazillion influencers online and even people using their fancy titles to pry off of your emotions and make a quick buck. None of that bullshit works. On my team, we have 6 non-negotiables. And if you master these 6 things, you will never, ever, ever struggle with fat loss again when implemented correctly. Non-negotiable number 1, calories. They always drive the show. You have to be in a calorie deficit to lose body fat. And understanding what that calorie deficit number is for your body and your goals is crucial. A very generic way to calculate a calorie deficit for your body is to take a realistic goal weight and times that by 12. This is the amount of calories that you are going to average over time. We're not looking to be perfect. It doesn't exist. It's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. However, we are looking to be really, really, really damn consistent. Non-negotiable number 2. Protein. It matters, and it matters a lot. Please stop treating it as if it's anything but that, a non-negotiable. Protein should be calculated off of lean mass. However, that calculation can be a little bit more confusing to understand, so I'm going to give you an easier way to calculate this. 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. The leaner you are, the closer to the full gram you need to be. If you have more than 50 pounds to lose, 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of realistic goal weight. For example, if you're 150 pounds, you're going to aim for 105 to 150 grams of protein every single day. Eating enough protein is the only way that you are going to sustain and maintain your muscle mass and hopefully add more muscle to your frame. Non-negotiable number 3, strength training. I need you lifting heavy shit multiple times a week and putting it back down. The amount of muscle you have to your frame is a direct result of your BMR. Your BMR is your basal metabolic rate, aka bare minimum requirement. This is the amount of calories that your body burns every single day at rest doing absolutely nothing. This is just to keep lights on and organs functioning. Your BMR is a direct driver of your metabolism, the amount of calories that you burn every single day. The more calories you burn daily, the easier fat loss is going to be, the easier it's going to be to actually be able to keep it off. It is one thing to say that I lost 20 pounds. It's another thing to say that I lost 20 pounds and I kept those 20 pounds off. Muscle truly is the longevity of health. And if you can stop hyperfixating about a number on a piece of metal that you stand on that tells you your relationship to gravity and give me a fraction of that energy and pour that into getting stronger, how can I add more muscle to your frame? 90% of your fat loss problems would be solved. Non-negotiable number 4, sleep. So underrated. Sleep impacts how you show up in everyday life. I mean, think about it. If you are exhausted AF, do you think your body's gonna want to show up to do the damn thing? Probably not. It controls your mood, your hunger, your emotions. Everything about life is better when you sleep better. Non-negotiable number 5, water. This should go without saying, but hydrate yourself. Fat metabolism, energy booster, appetite suppressant. 80 to 120 ounces is a solid range. Shoot for that. Make it fun. Get a cup, flavor it. Get your damn water in. Non-negotiable number 6, and probably one of the biggest levers that we can pull on your fat loss journey: steps. Prioritize it. Walking is so mother effing underrated, not just for achieving fat loss goals, but sustaining and maintaining your goals. 8,500 to 10,000 steps daily should be realistically where you want to land, but please, please, please meet yourself where you're currently at. So to do this, I want you to invest in some sort of tracker, a Fitbit, an Oura Ring, an Apple Watch. I want you to run that bad boy on autopilot for a week. I want you to get an average step count, and I simply want you increasing from that average. So let's say you're averaging 4,000 steps a day. You're going to move that up to 4,500. Master that. 5,000 steps. Master that. You get where I'm going at here until you fall somewhere, like I said, in that 8,500 to 10,000 step range daily. This is something that you need to do consistently, day in and day out, not just when it's new or it's fun or it's exciting or it's convenient. I need you prioritizing this. These are the 6 non-negotiables. When done correctly, will help you master fat loss.